Greetings. We are happy to welcome you on a live broadcast of breaking news on the ALLATRA TV channel. In this episode, we will talk not only about what has happened on the planet in the recent days, but also on the reason why building a creative society is actually the only way out of the situation for humanity. In the United States of America, at the end of the August, Hurricane Laura was raging, and ALLATRA TV reporter will tell you more about that.
Hello, ALLATRA TV reporter from the USA. In the last episode, we talked about excuse me, the Hurricane Laura that hit the Caribbean islands and then reached the southeast of the United States. As a result, a state of emergency was declared in the states of Louisiana and Texas on August 27, 2020. Hurricane Laura, Category 4, invaded the United States of Louisiana. Unfortunately, it brought catastrophic destruction and lots of casualties. Because of the strong winds and rain, some buildings were literally torn to pieces. The coastal areas were flooded and trees were everywhere. Over 800,000 residents of Louisiana and Texas were left without electricity. The spontaneity left behind cities filled with rubble and garbage. In the city of Lake Charles, in addition to the damage, buildings' steel poles were bent and there was a leak of chemicals from the plant. On the same day, having weakened to a tropical storm with a wind speed of 64 kilometers per hour, Laura moved to Arkansas. The wind force of the Hurricane Laura was so strong that the surface water in the Mississippi and Neches rivers began moving against the mainstream. And it is often believed that by influencing the hydro regime through changing riverbeds, building dams, draining rivers and water bodies, man can affect the climate globally. But when you see that the hurricane only had a few hours to turn back the rivers, you realize how much more power storms have compared to human influence. It should be not that timely evacuation, population of allowing reducing number of humans casualties. We've also found stories of people who, without thinking about themselves, tried to save and help others. The head of one of the Lake Charles hospital shared, it was scary. At some point, the wind became so strong that we had to move the patients to the corridors. Doctors took care of them, not knowing if their own houses could resist.
Thank you. This is a fantastic example of how people in their profession work with full dedication. Let me ask you, from your point of view, how people should behave during emergency situations when they are in the epicenter of a natural disaster?
When people are in this natural disaster, they should help one another. The reaction should be people first to save lives. And in a platform such as this, speaking of unity for the world, if we have that type of unity around the world and such distraction, such destruction as this happens, then we can all come together. We can all come together and help each other. This is our desire, and this is what we should be doing. There should never be a thought of what we should do. We should always be prepared. And if we have that type of a world where we're living in, where everyone consistently helps one another, regardless of where they are or who they are, or how much money they have or what resources they have. But we all need to take care of one another in such situations. And when emergencies happen, we should all be glad to fill in to help everyone.
Thank you very much, Leslie. We were glad communicating with you today.
Thank you.
We have also found another example of how people help and support each other. Leonard Harrison is a volunteer for a search and rescue organization. He was previously helped people cope with the consequences of natural disasters. And he has previously helped people, and this time he came from North Carolina in his truck to help anybody who will require or need help. He met an 85-year-old Lauren Richard who was standing and looking at her house damaged by the forces of nature. Harrison gave that woman a 3-day supply of food and several bottles of water. And supporting her, he mentioned that the house is just a box, it's just a house. The thing is that she is still alive. Harrison witnessed how the hurricane forces twice moved his truck that weighed for more than 4.5 tons. And also he added from himself a quote, "This was the fastest moving storm I have ever witnessed or seen ever." Facing the forces of nature, everyone is equal, regardless of profession, your status, religion, affiliation, or anything else. Now that we have heard examples of how people interact between like several people, but globally, everything can happen in the same way. We can always interact with the whole world. Surveys and interviews conducted within the Creative Society project actually show that all the people really want this. Every single person. So let's have a look at some of them.
It's important to
It is very important to help each other, since we can unite with each other in love, friendship, and kindness. We must go and new ways, try new things, thereby saving ourselves from the usual criteria that have been imposed on us by society. If there is justice in the world, it means that everything else is in order.
We need to change our mind and worldview. We are all together. Only together we will be able to do something. Not even the president. No one can do it alone. Unity. We should all be together. We need to be humans, to be kind to each other. We need to unite, to interact, to remember that we are humans, that we are connected, that we are one planet. If people learn to behave normally, well, correctly, let's say, and if people learn to be in the society, not just thinking about themselves, but also thinking about others, then I think it will unite everyone even more, because after all, the life of another person really depends on each of us.
Every single one is important in this world. Everyone can change the world for the better. One of us will be the last straw or last drop. In order to create a creative society, a society filled with peace, happiness, and creativity, just this drop, it can be you. And getting back to the world climate news, our reporter from Italy and Mexico will tell you on the storms, and in Europe and Mexico, and the series of earthquakes of the coast of Chile, will tell us the reporter from ALLATRA TV from Italy. Greetings, this is ALLATRA TV reporter from Italy. From 28th to 31st of August 2020, severe storm with a giant hail and tornadoes hit the northern Italy. Several cities have been significantly damaged. Unfortunately, there are casualties and several people are missing. In Cremona, Mantua, and Bergamo, hail the size of a chicken egg actually fell, and the roads have been cleared with heavy. Also, the city of Verona was again affected by natural disaster. There was severe floods, giant hailstones, and powerful winds that caused significant damage. The Vicenza and Belluno districts were severely affected. A tornado swept through Vicenza and knocking down trees, fences, and road signs, as well damaging buildings. On the August 29 during storm, residents of Genoa and the neighboring cities observed several water tornadoes in the sea. One of the main landfall and caused damage to the building. Unfortunately, there are injured people. On the same day, the storm, torrential rains, and hail devastated hit Mallorca, Spain, Rogers Island, down trees and caused blocked roads and a powerful outage. And there was also floods and landslides in some parts of the city. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured. On the 31st of 2020, a powerful storm covered Warsaw in Poland. It was accompanied by strong winds up to 25 kilometers per hour, rains and numerous flooding. As a result of the disaster, trees were felled and cars were damaged by fallen branches. And underground passages, streets were flooded. Tens of thousands of people were without electricity. The amount of precipitation was up to 40 millimeters, with the monthly norm of 50. The storm level in the river has actually rose up to 5 centimeters, not millimeters, but centimeters. And give the word back to the studio. Thank you so much. In Africa, due to the sudden and prolonged rains, an entire region is underwater. And ALLATRA TV reporter from Sudan, Al-Harith Youssef, has sent us his report.
Hello, this is ALLATRA TV reporter from Sudan. At the end of August 2020, heavy rains in Niger, West Africa, led to the massive flood. Thousands of people died. About 220,000 local residents were forced to leave their homes because of the flooding of the Niger River. Some part of Niamey city were flooded. Thousands of clear houses collapsed along the flood coastline, and much farmland was drowned. Just in the last week of August, floods affected almost 26,000 houses. Many buildings were damaged. Hundreds of villages were flooded. Last year, over 130,000 citizens became internally displaced due to the similar natural disasters. Meanwhile, on August 21st, 2020, heavy rainfall led to the flooding in southwestern Cameroon. About 900 families were evacuated due to the natural disasters. In the city of Douala, roads were flooded, transport infrastructure was disrupted, and houses were severely damaged. In the late July 2020, heavy rains resulted in flash floods that affected more than 5,000 people in northern Cameroon. On August 25th, 2020, in the Indian state of Odisha, torrential rains caused floods that killed thousands of people because of eroded roads. Hundreds of thousands of people were isolated from the rest of the world. In 5 locations, the level of rivers exceeded the dangerous level. People were also evacuated from unsafe areas. On the 1st of September 2020, thousands of people died in Sudan after a record flood during the rainy season, and 380,000 people were affected. The disaster caused damage across almost all the country. About 80,000 were damaged. Many families had to leave their homes and seek shelters at their relatives or community centers. over 5,000 cattle were killed, and after record spell of the Blue Nile River, 80,000 hectares of agricultural land was damaged or destroyed.
Трудно не замечать катастрофические наводнения, снег среди лета или нарастающее количество и силу штормов вместе с другими катаклизмами. Климат меняется. А когда изменимся все мы? Уже сейчас необходимо вести переговоры
Negotiate at the highest international level and help each other to cope with the sudden natural disasters and forces of nature, as well as to help the hundreds of thousands of people of forced ecological immigrants to adapt to the new living conditions. Over time, it is more than ever the format of creative society is needed instead of the current consumer-based one. Oh, it is obvious that only in this case the civilization has a slight chance to survive. And if we somehow offset the consequences of natural disaster as well as to cope with upcoming climate change, holding up high and with honor. At the end of the episode, let's all watch an excerpt from the video with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich of climate change, the beginning of a big disaster.
Знаете, я бы вот вывел такую формулу.
I would deduce the following formula. The consumer-based order means society for me, while the creative and constructive one means I am for society.
Great.
So if this paradigm doesn't change, then nothing will happen. And even if we return to the climate, in this situation, can people unite to do something? We've already said, yes, they can. There are still chances. We should work. But until we learn to think, I am for society and not society is for me, nothing will happen, nothing will change. Yes, life forces them. Situations force people to think a little differently, change something. Like I said, we tried to convey to people. We did a lot, informed them, but people didn't hear. Life forced them that they've started talking, both in Davos and everywhere around. They've started talking about unification now, but it is far from what is needed and not the right way. It's not enough. People should do it all, and not under constraint. Then it will be right way. And if they begin to unite under constraint, while standing on the edge of the cliff, will they join their hands and jump together or what? Is that the meaning of humanity? You should join hands much earlier. When you are only being pushed to the cliff in order to hold together and not to approach it, because afterwards it will be too late to decide anything.